Welcome back to the St. Joseph reflection videos. It's really crazy to think how we're already 7 months into the year of St. Joseph. If you haven't seen our other video reflections, they are available on all of our social media outlets. They're on Facebook, YouTube, our website, and also on Instagram. I would highly suggest that you read the Apostolic letter written by Pope Francis about St. Joseph for this year of St. Joseph. It's called Patris Corde, and it's an incredibly easy read. It's very short, but there's so many great things in there to learn about St. Joseph and the virtues that he possesses. I'm so excited for what we have in store for this video. I'm joined by Bob Reis, one of our parishioners here at All Saints, and yes, thank you so much for being willing to come out and talk with me.
Thanks for the invitation. It's good to see you.
Of course. And my favorite question to start off with is, who is St. Joseph to you?
It's an interesting question, and I'll start by saying that has evolved over time and kind of ebbed and flowed, actually. I think when I was younger, I wondered why St. Joseph didn't get more credit. That probably speaks more to my issues than anything about St. Joseph. But then over time, I kind of lost an interest or lost a connection. But then when I got married, I was seeking St. Joseph's intercession as I began that journey. When our son was born, as beginning the journey as a father, the same thing. And I think as a homeowner, every time I start a project, I think of St. Joseph as well as my father, who was a fearless do-it-yourselfer, and my grandfather on my mom's side, who was a plumber. So with those three watching over my shoulder, I think my success odds are pretty good. But I'd say it's kind of grown a little bit more this year, though. As part of that Manage You program that I've been involved with for many years, the content this year has focused a lot on St. Joseph. And I was encouraged to go through the consecration of St. Joseph. So learning a lot more and deepening that connection this year.
Yeah, I think that's true of really anyone that I've had the pleasure of talking to with these videos, is that during this year, their relationship with him has really been strengthened and gotten deeper and more close than it was in the past. And I like what you said about how your relationship with him kind of had ups and downs, because I think that's true of friendships in general. And we want to be friends with the saints, right? Because they're in heaven, they're with God, they're with Jesus, they're in his presence perpetually. And so we want to have a close relationship with those people that are close to God. And I think that this year that Pope Francis has declared as a year for us to dedicate to St. Joseph in growing in relationship with him, it's so important for us to take that time to reflect on maybe not having the strong relationship with him and then now wanting to grow in that. And it's not too late to start doing it now. Like, we're only 7 months into the year, but we still have quite a bit of the year left to go through.
Consecration only takes 33 days.
Exactly.
So anytime is a good time to start.
There's just so many different ways to pray to him and grow in that devotion. And I've seen that in my personal life throughout these 7 months, definitely. Around my friend group, become the expert of St. Joseph and the one that people come to when they have questions or just want to know more about who he is, and I guess think about the virtues that are portrayed in the Apostolic letter from Pope Francis, and one of those being St. Joseph being in the shadows. And so part of the reason that we chose this location in the church is because of the significance to you personally. So would you be willing to share that story?
Sure, absolutely. You're referring to my office, right?
Yes, yeah.
So back in the late 90s, early 2000s, 20-something years ago, I was involved with teen ministry here at All Saints, high school ministry. And for some reason, I had multiple conversations in this space, in the pews that were here. At that time, it was either with teenagers or with other volunteer members. Half a dozen or more conversations that occurred right there with St. Joseph kind of looking over my shoulder. And it happened, enough that I kind of referred to it as my office. Yeah,
I love that you had all these conversations that were really fruitful and helpful for the teens or the other volunteers or just anyone in general, and you had St. Joseph just in the background over your shoulder, interceding and praying for you, even if you weren't intentionally asking for that intercession, because
That's right.
he still prays for us. And then speaking about intercessions, this statue also has significance for you with intercessions with him, correct?
Absolutely. I mentioned when I got married that my focus kind of turned towards St. Joseph. When we were planning our wedding, I think every Catholic wedding I've been to, the bride and groom at some point will go over to the Blessed Mother statue and take a rose or take some flowers and ask for her intercession for their marriage. And I thought, well, why don't we go over to St. Joseph too? And the wedding coordinator and the cantor, they said, wow, the Mass is so long, and do you really want to do that? And I caved in, and we didn't do it. However, if you watch our wedding video, when we return from our visit with the Blessed Mother, I kneel down next to Rita on the kneelers there, and I take a long look in this direction. And that's when I was asking St. Joseph for his intercession and his guidance. Now, I didn't hold on tight to that, and I wish I had, because we went through many rocky times, as all marriages do.
Yeah.
But I wish I would have had more of his, consciously had more of his inspiration and guidance at that time. Though I know, as we just said, he was looking over my shoulder the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we don't understand how important it is to ask for intercession from different saints, specifically ones that we're close to, because you have that relationship with someone, you ask them to pray for you, and so then you have extra prayers, not just you going to God asking for help, but you have the people that love and support you also asking for that help. And I think about how when I first started working here and I was part-time as the communications assistant before I had my current role, my dad prayed a novena to St. Joseph that I would get full-time here and be able to stay here long-term. And I mean, ultimately, yes, it turned out in my favor, but my dad also has grown in that relationship with St. Joseph this year. He did Exodus 90. He got involved more so. Yeah, crazy. It's really intense. Got more involved with different men's group at my parents' parish. And just seeing how he has grown to love St. Joseph more and ask for his intercession more intentionally, like what you were talking about. And not just kind of letting that be in the background and really striving to live out those virtues of St. Joseph and support my mom, our family, and not just be a background figure, but, really be in the forefront. And, with Father's Day having just happened last month, I think about how blessed I am to have him as my father and to show me all these things about what it means to be cared for, to be loved, but also to show me the importance of having that relationship with God and with Mary in the same way. And also with other saints. My dad has devotions to other saints, same with my mom. And I think about how St. Joseph had all these incredibly holy men and women also have this deep relationship with him. And some of them are like St. Teresa of Avila, St. Francis de Sales, St. Henri Basset, St. Jose Maria Escriva, St. Faustina. They had these incredible experiences with him. Are there any of those saints, or maybe different saints, that you also have a strong relationship with, maybe because of St. Joseph or before you had a relationship with St. Joseph?
Yeah, absolutely. If you know the Robert Frost poem, The Road Less Traveled, there's a line near the end that talks about how way leads on to way, how path leads on to path. I think it's that way with the saints. I was involved in teen ministry, as I said, and during that time, St. John Bosco was a saint that I turned to quite frequently for guidance. And if your viewers don't know why, I encourage them to look that up. But St. John Bosco had a devotion to St. Francis de Sales, who had a devotion, as you just mentioned, to St. Joseph. So there was a connection along that path. And they were some of my guides along the way. And that devotion that St. John Bosco had, I wasn't really aware of that. But it starts to make sense looking back in hindsight, that maybe he was also pointing me back towards Joseph. You mentioned Father's Day. My father passed almost 11 years ago, so St. Joseph's now kind of my spiritual father. He's giving me some guidance. I look at these attributes of his, and I even learned an acronym associated with his name of those attributes of justice and obedience, silence, very difficult for me, endurance, patience, and his holiness. And so now I look at him as my spiritual father, inspiring me along those paths as well.
And I think it's great that you talked about how he is our spiritual father, because so many people comment on how Mary's our spiritual mother, and to go to her for intercession and guidance, because a mother cares for you and wants your best interest and looks out for you and supports you and guides you. But a father does the same thing. And so I think during this year of St. Joseph, it's really important to hold on to that, of St. Joseph being our spiritual father. And there's this book, it's by Dr. Mark Miravalle. He also wrote Meet Your Spiritual Mother, but he wrote one about St. Joseph called Meet Your Spiritual Father. And it goes through the different virtues of St. Joseph, very similarly to the Apostolic letter by Pope Francis. But it's a quick read, it's not even thick at all. And it really helped me understand how St. Joseph is also our spiritual father, and someone that I should go to in that regard as well, not just asking for intercession and, doing little chores around the house or building or making things. Like, that's not the only thing that St. Joseph did. He was an incredible father, a holy man, and really listened to the will of God. Even though he didn't speak in the Bible at all, that goes to the silence that you mentioned. It doesn't mean that he didn't speak at all in his life. He still spoke with Mary and Jesus, I would think. I would like to think that he did. But he was just very in tune with where God wanted him to be and where God was leading him, and very inclined to surrender himself to the Spirit to guide him to where he needed to be. And
those two are so closely intertwined too. The silence to be able to hear that call, and then the obedience to that call. And in Scripture, there's not much about St. Joseph, but those two things are there, especially his willingness to obey without question.
Yeah, and I think we see that in a lot of our saints as well. A lot of them just have that 100% surrender, that 100% here I am, Lord, just work through me, guide me, lead me where you want me to go. And I think, what? I'm not ready to give up that control right now. But in little ways, we can do that too. It doesn't have to be in the big, I'm going to get up and go to Egypt and take my whole family with me because we kind of need to go. But it can be in our little sacrifices that we have during the day, whether it's driving to work and letting that person get in front of us, even though maybe we're also in a rush to get places, or walking to church, walking into the church and smiling at the people around us, waving to people, showing that kindness and that warmth of our faith that we get to live out so beautifully. And going back to the saints and how they show us how to love and how to be Christians and to impersonate the love of Christ. What have you seen from St. Joseph, or maybe from these other saints that you have a relationship with, in holiness and what they have taught you in striving for that?
I think you kind of mentioned it just now. Surrender is the biggest piece. And a lot of these saints didn't start out saints.
Yeah.
They had their human tendencies, their own pride, their own personal demons to struggle through. And there's something to me that is magnetic, it's powerful about that silence of St. Joseph. And maybe that's because I talk so much. And I'm even here, I'm elected. I have to speak. But that piece of it, I think, is the biggest inspiration to me. And then the willingness to engage in whatever it is that God's calling us to do. And that's what I draw from most of the saints that I'm devoted to.
No, I think that's an incredible thing to remember, that not all saints started out as saints. They didn't necessarily start out as holy people. Think of St. Augustine. He had this crazy transformation in his journey.
Ignatius.
Exactly. But then there's also, other saints even with the apostles, they didn't necessarily have a great journey. Think of, Peter denied Christ 3 times, and yet he was the foundation of the church. He was the first pope. And so, that kind of gives me hope in the sense of I don't have to be perfect right now, but continually striving for that perfection and that holiness through the intercession of the saints, and this year specifically through the intercession of St. Joseph, and growing in that relationship with him.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation and talking about St. Joseph. It's been really great hearing about your stories with, the specific statue in the church and how it was your office and just the importance of St. Joseph's intercession in your life, maybe more so recently, but kind of, throughout your time here in your work at All Saints and how you look up to him and wanting to grow in that relationship with him.
I enjoyed the conversation too. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and please follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We also post updates on our website, so be sure to look there for new and upcoming events and different content that we have for you to look at. Next month, we have Deacon Mark, and he is going to talk a lot about what his personal relationship is with St. Joseph, and it's not going to be one that you're going to want to miss. Thank you, and God bless.